You are watching Leicester Till I Die TV.
Watch us on YouTube.
Listen on your favourite podcast platform.
Or ask your smart speaker
To play the podcast Leicester Till I Die.
Right, Chris.
Muted himself, done it again. I'm awesome at doing that, aren't I? I'll try it again. Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good day, wherever you are in the world. I hope you're enjoying this show and joining us live here. I hope you can hear us now because I have unmuted myself. If you're wondering where Chris is, well, unfortunately, Chris has caught a bit of cold and flu at the moment. And he's feeling really under the weather. So you're stuck with me as your host, which, you know, second best. First the worst, as they say, as that song goes. So hopefully you're enjoying a bit of company. We are here to talk all things Leicester, mainly the man that is taking all of our hearts at the moment, Enzo Maresca. And we've got some lovely guests with us in the background. Now, one is a familiar face, the lovely Kate. The show that you all come in to view is the lovely Kate in the background. But we have, and I hope she won't mind me making her wait a little bit, we have a returning guest. He's come back from a major marathon for all of amazing causes. It is, of course, he's not got Eagle Piggle with us, but it is Dave. Dave, how are you doing, my friend?
Hello, Brad. I'm good, mate. Thank you very much. I thought you were making a lot of sense earlier.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
You were saying in the background how tense you were. I'm so tense and nervous to host it. I kept myself quiet for the public to not be able to hear me.
Very nervous.
Dave, you obviously did a huge charitable thing with along with the amazing Jeff Stelling's charity. Tell a little bit of people about it and how you managed to cope and get through it.
Well, the last question, I have no idea. We went up to High Wycombe on Saturday afternoon, stayed overnight, got up about 4 o'clock Sunday morning, got a coach from Wycombe Wanderers up to Wembley for about 6:30, and then it was 7:30 start, and walked all the way back to Wycombe Wanderers Football Club,
Wow.
which is a marathon distance. There was a 2 or 3 mile coach trip in between, so it was a game of 2 halves. But yeah, and in the afternoon, I don't know whether you had it anywhere else, but it hammered down a rain as well, so it was pretty wet. But it was great, and you know, it just shows what football people can do when they all get together.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing what happens when we all come together for a truly brilliant cause. And Dave, you're a braver man than me, because I would have probably stopped after 26.4 minutes, let alone 26 miles walking that distance.
Never again.
And you know, like you said, it was a very warm weather day we've been having recently until this rain came in. But there is someone in the background now. Maybe mainly for the gentleman in there, but she will leave you a bit hot under the collar. She is the face that everybody tunes in to see. We have, of course, got Kate with us. Kate, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm really well, thank you. How are you both?
I'm good, thank you.
Wonderful,
I'm glad
thank you.
well. Right, let me get rid of this banner so we can see your lovely face.
That billing is just amazing. I don't know what have you been up to? Hey? God, not seen wonderful billing since Keith Weller joined us.
Well, you know, just I've got to try and make you feel good about yourself, because, like you said, Dave, I might not even let you speak because you've not brought Ickle Pickle with you, and he's the only reason we let you on this show is because Ickle Pickle brings you in. Is that the private message you telling me that you couldn't hear me? Yeah, Moses. Cheers, guys. I love you both for that very much, as well as thank you to everybody in the comments that ignored me that there was no sound. We're obviously going to talk Enzo Maresca more. We're actually going to do a bit of a comparison, aren't we, guys? We're going to talk a little bit about, obviously, how well Enzo's integrated his style and of play into the game, but we're going to compare him to a certain manager. Luckily, I haven't got the button on hand just to press, but I think we all know about me pressing it. We're on about a certain bell end that led Leicester to the great relegation of last season. First of all, guys, I know, Kate, you weren't able to see it. You've only seen the highlights of it, which is still been brilliant. But we don't even have to discuss the outcome of potentially bouncing back from the Hull defeat, do we? Because we've managed to do it in style. I know you only saw the highlights, but it's obviously a great response to that defeat against Hull.
Yeah, absolutely amazing response. I thought all the stats that I was reading leading up to the match, it was either us or Southampton at the top of a lot of those stats. So I thought it was going to be a lot closer than it was. I think Southampton had done well with possession as well. Obviously, they got absolutely hammered in the previous game, but those anomalies do happen once in a while. But it's a worry for them getting knocked for 9 over 2 games, isn't it? But I didn't expect it to be so quite emphatic. I think from what a few of my friends said, it could have been 3-3 after 15 minutes. So yeah, great way to get back on the wagon really and march on. I think it was just from what I've seen, the highlights were just great. I don't know who this Wilfred Ndidi chap is, but he looks a bit of all right going forward at the minute, to be honest. It was even the highlights. It was only 20 minutes or so I watched on YouTube, but it was thoroughly enjoyable, and we played some really nice stuff.
Yeah, we certainly did, and to be honest with you, I did the watch along because, as you know, Chris went to the game. He was lucky enough to get some tickets to go to the game, and I was able to step in and do the watch along for him. And even at 2-0, I was thinking, well, Southampton can get a goal here, and obviously, curse of the commentators ended up doing it. I mean, Dave, obviously, you've been a very busy man, and we've not, you've had your own things going on. But were you able to watch the game, or were you like Kate?
I've seen the first half. I haven't had time to see the second half because I must confess I went up the club or the pub because I don't know, Southampton away after last year. I was a bit nervous, so I bottled it. But I tell you what, the first 3 goals just complete mistakes by terrible defending, and I thought, well, if this is potentially the 2 best teams in the league, and it was just awful, the defending. I'm trying to play it out from the back. I mean, I'm all for it when we do it right, but sometimes just hoof the bloody thing, get it out there. We've forgotten how to hoof it now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you guys didn't get to see the full game. You're only going off highlights, and I can appreciate that. But there's some comments there. Nate said there that one of the goals was plus 30 passes, which is typical of what we've come to see. Leicester being patient but passing with a purpose, like Nate said, and it's leading to a goal. But we did see on occasions throughout the game, long balls being played. We were trying to spring a counter attack. So would that be a fair assessment? And looking at that and comparing it to your Huddersfield, your Cardiffs, your Hulls and Coventries, etc. beforehand, we talked about, and Enzo always mentioned patience in the team learning. There were 20%, 30% until how he wants to play. Did we get our first big insight into the full aspect of Enzo Ball? I mean, I'll come to you first on this one, Kate, because I just finished with Dave there. But do you feel we got an even bigger insight into what we could expect to see going forward this season, with the fact that it was quite diverse? It wasn't so one-dimensional as we'd seen in the opening few games.
Yeah, I think so. And I think as we've spoken about with Chris before about the Athletic, I've recently signed up to the Athletic, and they did a really good article last week just before the Southampton game about Enzo and his stats and some really intricate things that sometimes I've not played football, but I guess you two have in some capacity. But it really picked up on some of the stats, and that was that we're one of the lowest at trying long balls, but when we do, we're one of the most successful at doing it. And I felt that was really quite obvious from some of that 32 pass goal that happened. It was kind of at one pace, and then very quickly we were able to ping it across the other side of the pitch and just change pace all of a sudden, and people moved, and it just gathered momentum and pace because we've got so much pace in the team, and it just felt really diverse and quite it ranged quite a lot, from passing a bit round the back to trying to actually prod and poke through. Whereas with Brendan, it used to be 30 passes around the back, to be honest. But I thought that was really, it seems like we're learning when to penetrate and doing it properly and quickly to kind of change the pace as quickly as possible, which I thought was really obvious, particularly from that 32 pass goal.
Yeah, I mean, it was an incredible stat to come out of it. 32 passes. I mean, 33 if you include it going in the net. I think someone did it differently, but yeah, 30. I mean, the fact that it went into the 30s for passing, it was like prime, mid 2000s Barcelona, wasn't it? And Bayern Munich, teams like that were very well known. I mean, they always say if Messi would have done it, it would have been gushed over, and when the likes of Messi, Ronaldinho, and that were in the same side, and they were doing it. It was wonderful to see, and it's something.
For McAteer's goal, Vardy's movement off the ball as the pass came through took the defenders with him, which McAteer picked on straight away. You can actually see Vardy point at that moment, point the passer to McAteer, because it just started to look like we actually knew what each other was thinking for once. And there's some training ground progress been made actually to just cut teams open, and it was really exciting to watch. And it looks like they're really enjoying it as well, which is half the battle, really. I can imagine, with getting players to play your way.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I mean, Dave, I'm going to ask you this question, because Kate's wrapped that up really nicely. Kate did mention him. Kate mentioned the.
Found the
Didn't
button.
take long, did it?
I always find the button eventually. It's my favourite one next to the Ian one. But Dave, she mentioned there, 33 passes, slow build up, patient play, and just waiting patiently for that moment. We heard the murmurs though, didn't we? When we lost to Hull, and we were having lots of shots, but only one on target throughout the game. Lots of fans kind of maybe fell back in time a little bit, and that kind of rose its ugly head. But what would you say is the biggest difference between the way Brendan did it? I know instinctively people are going to say, well, we scored goals and won games under Enzo. We didn't do that under Brendan. But how much of a difference is there between the way Enzo gets them to be slow and patient and build it up and get a good note out of it than Brendan, who just tried it but seemingly couldn't do it? I know we've had a change in personnel in players around, I think, but surely that can't just be the be all and end all. It can't just be suddenly, James Maddison and Harvey Barnes are crap players, because they're certainly not. They're doing well at their respective clubs that they've gone to. So what's the biggest difference in it that people maybe need to see, that's why we still play that way a little bit?
Well, I think Kate summed it up really. I mean, last year we just sat on the back and played it sideways, and nobody moved, nobody knew where to go, nobody knew what ball to play. I did make a note that it was good, certainly the first half, that I saw the whole of it. To see Vardy actually making movement and actually getting the ball or people looking for him, that's not happened for a long time. He's made so many runs over the last couple of years and just not got anything. It kind of reminded me of people like Drinkwater and some of the play that came out, the quick through balls to Vardy, but also we can play differently when we need to. And you're talking about the passes, that's the Man City way, isn't it? Be patient if you have to be. That's what they did to Leicester last year, I think, at our place, when we should have murdered them and we sat back forever. And Man City just sat back and let us do it. And, played around with the ball on the halfway line and then scored the goal. I mean, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, I think you're right. We were very, very passive in that game. Well, for the majority of that season, let's face it, we were too passive for our own good. I mean, Dave, you just mentioned Drinkwater there, and I think you're reading my notes. I'm going to have to start hiding these notes down here because I just kind of clicked it and wrote this down. So I think
you said it. Did you say it on the intro?
I may have done, but I kept it quiet for everybody else. You see, only you guys could hear me. That's everybody thinks this show isn't planned. I know. He thinks this show isn't planned, isn't it? We'll edit that out. Don't worry about it. But Kate, I'm inclined to say.
You're not going to ask me now.
I know. Dave, go away. Everybody say bye to Dave. Bye, Dave. Bye. He's done now. That's Dave's return. Everyone done. No, but seriously, I mean, Kate, Dave made a little, niche nod there to Drinkwater, and remember, obviously, the Great Escape, as well as we have to remember it started with the Great Escape, but obviously the most notable Premier League win this season. We had a lot of people saying that Mahrez, Drinkwater, and Vardy were almost telepathic, and Dave mentioned it there. He was signalling, even when McAteer wasn't in the spot, he was signalling where to go with the ball because he knew that McAteer was running into there. Do you feel we already have that sort of thing? Because I had noticed it a little bit more in that Southampton game that there was in that 30-odd pass move, there was a killer ball played all the way over into the air. And at first you're thinking, where the fuck she put that to? And it was right on McAteer's right boot. Brilliantly controlled by McAteer, but he had that for the build-up. And notably his goal, he threaded it through two defenders and McAteer ran onto it. It wasn't like he played it into his path. He did play it into his path, but it wasn't like he was there to receive it. He was still running onto it. And are we seeing that, new domain? I know it's still the old head with Vardy there, but are we getting back to that feeling of, wow, these players are on the same wavelength and it, 6 games into the season?
They're getting there. I wouldn't say it's a done thing at all, but it's just really refreshing to see some pass and move going on. I think that's the biggest thing that we didn't do last year. There was lots of like Wilfred to Johnny or Wilfred to Vestergaard, or whoever was at the centre half. There was lots of those kind of passes on. How many times I would stand at the ground and shout, turn to Wilf, because he never turned. He would never turn to face forwards. It was like knee-jerk reaction was just keep it safe and keep possession. Whereas I think Enzo's just taught them to be confident and also make one or two of you, someone will always be available. You've got to make yourself available. I think that's a bit of a challenge going on, and that's the pass and move philosophy, which most good teams do. Like Man City are never without options. It's ridiculous to compare us to them, but there's always someone who wants it. And that pass you spoke about then, the cross-field pass, that was done blindly. I can't remember who made it, but they just hooked it, basically. They didn't look. But it's just that knowing that McAteer should be there, and if he's there, great. If he's not, it looks ridiculous. But we're just starting to move and have confidence, because at the end of the day, the aim of the game is to score goals. Possession gets you nothing if you're not going to score anything. So I think we're getting there. I think it's great to see. McAteer's just done brilliantly, hasn't he? I'm glad that he's finally got a go. Long may it continue, to be honest.
That's the argument last year, Kate, isn't it? These guys got run-outs in the lower cup games and played well. Yeah. And then were never given a chance when we were short of players or not knowing where to play people. They never had a chance. Yeah. And this was a guy that's supposed to bring in youngsters.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing that Enzo said, whether it was last week or the week before, was that the most important player for him in the squad is Jamie Vardy, which is really interesting because you wouldn't have expected him to say that. But I think that he still thinks Vardy's got quite a lot left in the tank, because he wasn't used a lot at all last season, really. And if you can start using him like you should, it's going to bear fruit like it did on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing that we're starting to see is that there is, and it's natural, there is a few names that are slowly starting to, I wouldn't say be an automatic pick for the side, but you're feeling fairly confident that if you was to guess the lineup before it gets released, you probably would say, Ricardo, Hamadson, Winks, Dewsbury Hall, Mavididi. Seems to be, just
to stay fit as well now. I think JJ, now he's done his 90. Hopefully, he's not hurt from that tackle.
Yeah, definitely. That could be one that goes into it going forward. I mean, the good thing is about it is where we felt, well, we didn't feel, we knew, without it being said, that Brendan had his stubborn favourites, didn't he? He'd almost try and play them into form instead of rest them and rotate it. You get the feeling that if you work hard and when your opportunity is given to you, whether it's a cup match or whether it's a league match, because we're going to have to get used to, midweek weekend with, we're on telly again on the Wednesday. So we've got to get used to these occasions. It's refreshing to see these players kind of trying to make this position their own, and they know full well that if they have a bad game, beside how Enzo deals with a player that has a bad game is up to him. But you know then that you're going to be feeling crap. I've got to really work hard now because, Atgun or, a Fatu or Cody might come into my spot, depending on where he is. If you have a bad game in a position, there's players there that are ready to take it. And I feel like it's just re-energized the team, and it's something that we were missing last season, wasn't it? Because it didn't feel like, it felt like we had way too many players that if they put in a bad performance, it was like, sorry, but oh well, I'll do better next week because I know no one's taking my spot. And that surely just has to be another plus to the squad that we've got available to us. Kate, sorry, that was you. And to you, Dave. Same thing to you as well, Dave, as well. Sorry, we'll pass it around.
Right. No, I know where I stand. It's okay.
Yeah, I think the philosophy is just slowly coming through. Rome wasn't built in a day, and there's still very much a new manager syndrome going on. Like, players are still going to be fighting for their place. So we'll see how that is in 20 games time, maybe. But it's just great to see. I love people, because I really used to love Ndidi. I think he's had a shocking 2 years. But I'm delighted to see him back and with a smile on his face. And, he can actually shoot when you give him, he's obviously been practicing a bit. But, it's nice to see. You want to see your team enjoy playing football and enjoy playing for your club. And yeah, it's really good to see. Really good to see.
I think with Ndidi, I mean, he was, you're right. I mean, he was always supposed to be that defending midfielder, wasn't he? And he always was the one that was passing it back and didn't have license to do anything with it. Now, I mean, he's getting in some positions you would never expect, and it's working. So why couldn't Rodgers have seen that? It didn't take Enzo long to see it, did it?
No, not at all. He can run. He's a big guy.
Yeah. Pretty skillful.
I think we know why. I think it's because Brendan was one of these.
Bell end.
That's an easy answer. We know that. But as a coach, why hasn't he thought? He moaned enough about not having a transfer budget when there was a decent attacking midfielder sat there in the ranks, but he just wasn't using him right. It's really frustrating. That could have cost us Will, because I think he was tempted to go.
Yeah, he only stayed because of the new coach and because of the right things said. Because he didn't make a big fuss, did he, about wanting to go?
Yeah.
I know.
Well, anyway. that seems to be it. I mean, when Enzo first arrived, Dave, didn't he? Yeah, he just as you said there, he came out, and it's not often you hear a manager saying that. It could give the wrong impression, but he came out quite almost smuggish like. If I knew my way around the buttons, I would play the Jeremy Clarkson smug button. But he always said, look, I had 6 players that came that I, maybe they didn't come to him directly. Maybe it was, okay, where are the players' heads at? And one of the backroom staff went, well, this player, that player, this player, Tom, Dave, Steve, and all that, they all want out right now, but they're willing to give you a chance because you're new. And obviously, he's got now these 6 players have been working with me. They want to stay. And I agree with both of you. I feel like Ndidi, along with my favourite, my love child, Ian Atcher, I don't know if I mention it enough, like my little man crush, although I did say to Kate that maybe he might need to start trying harder with Mavididi. Showing some catching my eye, but it does feel good, doesn't it? It almost feels like over that 18 months where we felt like we were losing that family feeling that all the players kept saying. We always heard Madison, we always heard Barnes, we always heard Vardy, especially talking about that family feeling. Casper was talking about it when he was at the club. I felt like over the last 18 months we've lost it, and I know Rome isn't built in a day, Dave, but as fans, is it just me, or does it feel like we've got that back now with a new bunch of legs? Like we've started another chapter in this Leicester journey, and we could be in for another great period of Leicester's
I hate
history.
to say it, but yeah, I reckon, I mean, over the last God knows how many years, 50 years, we've always had that moment where there's a false dawn and then it all goes wrong. But this time, we've got sensible coaching staff who know their business, and I think, was Faze dropped for Friday, or was he injured?
He was on the bench,
so he was dropped. Now that would never have happened that I can think of last year, and he was having nightmare games, really making mistakes. He wasn't. He almost looked like he was getting too cocky last season, because he's in the Premier and he just. Sliding the ball around casually and all that. And I think this is a bit of a rude awakening for him. And Vestergaard, was he man of the match?
He was a close contender. Chris had him as man of the match. I and along with most others, went with Mavididi because he did get 2 assists.
And very good ones.
He got a goal.
He could have had 6 more, couldn't he? Especially in the first half.
Yeah. He could have, and that brings it to it, doesn't it? Kate, we've not been the biggest admirers of Vestergaard, to put it politely, but when you saw maybe that Faze wasn't in the team, I don't know if you actually saw the lineup beforehand at all, so apologies if this is okay. So when you saw that Faze wasn't in the team and that's how they were implementing JJ into it, were you a bit surprised for that? Because I personally was expecting Faze to be in the team and maybe Doyle going out for Justin and Vestergaard notably getting dropped for Cody, but Cody made the bench and didn't even get a 5-minute run out in his legs, which I thought maybe was a bit surprising. Did it surprise you, or were you kind of like, well, you know what, hands up, fair play?
Yeah, it did, but I think because I'm still stuck in the ways of, he's not going to change that, is he? Because that's just the way that we've known for a little while, really. But when I was discussing it with the people that I was out with on Friday, I think one of the reasons was that he's not long been back off international duty, which I think was the same for some of them anyway. But he obviously wants to make a point that, I think one of my friends pointed out quite rightly that most of the team that started didn't have an international duty, like they didn't go anywhere. So he would have worked a lot with them during the 2 weeks to properly bed in some of the ideas, particularly people like Fatawu and Eunice, because they've been there 5 minutes before the whole game, hadn't they? So I think it's nice to not know what the team is entirely going to be. You want the base there, you want the spine, but it's nice to know that we've got some choices now. And I think I will be more reassured when Cody comes back in. Not necessarily Vestergaard's done really well, but I think Cody brings that level of leadership that we have longed for ages, basically since Johnny was crocked. Johnny was that for us, and he was absolutely incredible, hence why Man United wanted him back. But we've not been able to access him for ages because he's been on the hospital bed for God knows how long, really. So it's not, I think Cody, he goes home and away, from what I understand. Even with his boot on, he was going home and away because he wanted to be in with the lads. And I think he'll be pivotal for us, really, as that experienced head who's actually a really good footballer as well. Whereas I don't think Vestergaard's quite that, but he's done brilliantly. Like, I eat my words with that. He has done brilliantly for us.
Yeah, he has, and even I have to eat my words. I mean, if Mavididi didn't put in a show the way he did, I honestly would have gave best to God man of the match. It's ironic, isn't it? It wasn't like it was just a one-off either. He's been pretty decent for us all season when he's been given the chance. I mean, Dave, is this another big difference between Brendan and Enzo? If you forget the style of football for a minute, but you talk about how he managed the players, because when he first came in, we were under the impression he was a great man manager. He could manage a player, he could get the best out of them, especially the young players. He could do it, and at the start it seemed that way, and then maybe when he was given too much responsibility and power as a manager, i.e. transfers as well as managing, and he got too involved in the coaching side of things. Has his handling of players, like you said with FaZe, he kind of played him to death, tried to play him back into form, and then when it was too late, he'd drop him, and his confidence is at zero. Is that a big thing here? Because Nate says it here. Nate says, Mavididi, if it wants to load up on the screen, there we go. Mavididi was dropped for a game, and look how he's responded. Seems like Maresca does better using them moments and coaching opportunities. I mean, is that an out-and-out just better job by handling by Enzo compared to how Brendan tried to handle a dip in form or a bad performance, do you think?
I think so, but I also, in defence, would say that perhaps, we've got half a dozen or so more players now to be able to do that with than we had before. The ones that have left weren't really. I mean, Harvey Barnes, yeah, great when he's functioning, but he wasn't interested, I don't think. He just wanted to run at a defender, and that was it. So I think he'd lost interest, which is, well, I don't know, maybe. But Maddison, he spent more time on Twitter telling us how good they were and unlucky than he did actually doing it. And of course, we know Tielemans' problem and that sort of thing. So I think he's got some hungry players, and that's vital, because young players as well, if they are dropped, they'll respond. Older players get the ump and sulk. And I think that's a big difference. And also, don't forget, Enzo's a quality player with a good pedigree, not so much in management, but coaching, definitely. And he was working with probably the best coach in the world for at least a year. And if that doesn't rub off on you, nothing will. So I think it's a mixture of everything. But he's the one that's decided what players, I believe. Yeah. So, you've got to praise him for that as well.
Yeah. I mean, you do. You have to. I mean, minus that whole result, there's not really a lot he hasn't touched that's not turned to gold. I mean,
we were still the best team by a mile, weren't we?
We were. I mean, even some Hull fans have come out and said, "Look, on another day, you probably get something from that game," and rightly so. I mean, but Kate, is it also the fact that he's not telling these players aren't getting the feeling that if they're dropped, that's it, their opportunity's gone. They're going to wait. They might have to wait for an injury, because it felt like with Brendan, he'd big someone up, Chowdhury, for instance, or he'd big up Mendy, and then not played him again after like maybe a bad performance or a bad 20 minutes. He just wouldn't play them again. They wouldn't feature. Do you just feel like he's just been honest? I mean, we hear that a lot with Enzo in his interviews. He's very upfront, it seems, with his players. Do you feel that just helps the situation with these players, that they know, yes, if I play bad, I'm not going to play, but if I work hard, I'm going to get given the opportunity. I'm not going to have to wait for an unfortunate injury. If I get my head down and work really hard, and I'm going to get an opportunity to play. Like, obviously, these players that came off the international break, he's gave them a rest. We could see changes for that game, and it's not going to be, looking at it and we're going, well, that's because you played badly and you've been dropped, is it? Is that the feeling you get from the way he's been with the squad since he's come to Leicester?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's going to be an element of transparency there, because there has to be, both ways. And I think it's about respect. I genuinely believe that by the end of his tenure, Brendan respected nobody but Brendan. And it was all about self-preservation. Whereas Enzo's come in from a very, very, if not the most successful team that there will be, except for maybe Messi's Barca, and the best coach of a generation as well. He will know that you've got to respect players, you've got to manage your superstars, you've got to manage your youngsters, because they're your future. And not everybody plays for Man City every game. Like, Haaland's not a shoo-in every game. It depends, and you want to rest him and save him. You don't want to overplay youngsters. I think that's the mistake Brendan made with Luke Thomas and with KDH. So a lot of these kids are under 21, and they are still developing their own games. So and from his own point of view, for Enzo, this isn't going to be his lifelong job. He wants to make as good a go at this as absolutely possible, hopefully complete the project and what could be I reckon he's perhaps the icing on the cake would be a European finish again for Leicester City in the Premier League, and then he will move on to bigger and better things, hopefully. So everybody wants something from this project, so everybody's got something to prove, which I think that hopefully will help us.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, unless you're a great manager, and what I mean by that is you look at the list of greats in terms of longevity. Unless you're a Klopp, unless you're a Pep, and you look at the clubs they're doing them at, unless you're an Alex Ferguson or a Wenger, your longevity elsewhere is normally done at about a 5-6 year period. Gone are the days, aren't they, Dave, really, where managers would wear their heart on their sleeves and be there until 13, 14 years. Obviously football was only a startup back then when these managers used to have it, but that was something that Enzo kind of made his statement intense and clear, that he's got a goal, he's got an end goal in mind of where he wants to take Leicester to. This is his first real big opportunity to manage a big club. He considers us a big club. If you go off our recent history, we are a successful club. If you don't want to use the term big club, I suppose you could say we're a fairly successful club in what we've won. And he clearly has an end goal, because he made that very statement. I know people could say, oh, it's easy to say that when you're hired, but he made a statement that if it took him 5 years to get Leicester to where he wants to get it, it's not. That it didn't make it sound like it was, I just want to get you back to the Premiership and then I'm going. It sounds like he has a set goal in mind of where he wants to take this club to, and kind of reminiscent of the O'Neill years, kind of then try and potentially leave it in safe hands. Hopefully fucking safer hands than O'Neill left it in with potato peeler. But do you feel like the same sort of things there, that there's a job to be done, and unless he's shoved out because of bad results, I guess he's going to stay and do that job before we have to worry about him moving on?
Yeah, I'm not very realistic about all this. I find
you're never realistic. You're never optimistic either.
I just find it.
Okay.
I'm talking when I'm not moving my lips.
It's been conquest act, isn't it? It's right, let me just see if
Okay, hello. No.
All right, keep going. Sorry, I'm prematurely blaming Kate. Yeah, let me see what I can do.
It must
talk, Dave.
Hello. Lovely to see you.
No, it's Kate. Kate, something with your end, because I've just muted you and now it's started. I don't know why. It happens all the time with Chris when I come on. It must be StreamYard, but for whatever it is, Kate, let me see if it's gone now when I unmute you. Try talking again, Dave.
Hello, how the devil are you all?
Yeah, it's just a StreamYard problem. It just picks one of us that needs to be muted and unmuted. I've unmuted you, Kate, so you should be able to talk and speak now.
Well, I don't know what the problem was. What was the problem?
It's StreamYard. Dave could hear an echo when he was talking. It's just StreamYard, Kate. Don't worry. We'd never kick you out.
As you were, you said you're not very realistic.
Oh no, because I don't get personally offended, but I get a bit upset when people talk about moving on from Leicester. It all started with Franco Farrell when he went to Man United for a better life, and he got sacked after about 6 months. And I just think, we can be a massive club. We can be. We've got this idea of building the new stadium. I assume that's on, not new stadium, extra 10,000. I assume that's on hold until we get back in the Premier League. I don't know. I haven't heard anything. And the village around it, we've got the best training facilities apart from maybe Man City in the UK. Why can't we be a big club? We're a pretty big city. I don't get it. I think if you get the right bloke in, who he doesn't have to move on and take a chance of messing up elsewhere. He can do it at Leicester. He's got the support of the board when they can. He's unlikely to get sacked, as Brendan found out. Now, that's just randomly happened again, hasn't it, since I said Brendan?
Yeah, so it's his name. It's like a ghost in the StreamYard. It doesn't like it. Try and work through it, mate.
Anyway, that's just personal. I think the fans play a big part. I think we had a discussion about not caring about friendlies months ago, and then loads of people went to Peterborough, was it, or Northampton? And the manager was clearly impressed with that, and the support that the team get home and away, and rightly so. But I think we have a sort of a rogue element sometimes within it that tend to like to boo before they cheer, and I think we've got to cut that out, because people want to feel loved at Leicester and any club, and we've built our reputation on being a family club and all together. And as you say, now it's starting to happen again. We've got rid of the deadwood. We're actually starting to look like we're enjoying our football. Even Vardy. I mean, Vardy just used to do the thumbs up because he did. Now he actually means it. And he's making runs like he always did. But now something's happening because people are realising it. And that's got to be incredible.
Yeah,
But,
I mean,
I just get miffed when people use us as a springboard. And
yeah, I mean, Kate, unfortunately, I think it's going to be a long time. Sadly, it's going to be a long time before the media stranglehold on control, if you will, on what they consider to be a big club. It's going to keep having that stranglehold on the fact that it's always going to be Manchester clubs, it's going to be Liverpool, it's going to be Arsenal. So you look at how a couple of them have started this season, most notably Manchester United and Chelsea. You look at how they've been over the last few seasons. Is there a case of saying, all right, maybe in the big companies of Sky and TNT or BT or whatever it's called now, that's not the case, but could Leicester become a big side in the eyes of sports fans? Because obviously we had that obvious period where we were.
sorry, Brad, you really echoing my end.
So
I've muted myself. So
yeah, I know it's not you. Give me a second.
Sorry, mate.
Right, am I echoing now?
No, you're not
echoing.
Echoing.
That's good. Good. Kate, I'll just ask you the question, so you should sort of answer it yourself. While I try and figure out why it keeps randomly echoing on us here. But can you see a way where maybe the power comes back to football through the fans, and they kind of go, well, no, Chelsea keep failing, Man U are failing, they're no longer a big club in present time. Yes, they'll always be big historically, but not in present time. Brighton are probably considered bigger than Manchester United for what they're doing and achieving. Is there a way back to that maybe in 5 years' time, if Leicester do get promoted and they do well, that they'll go, well, no, hold on a minute, Leicester are a bigger club than a Chelsea because they're not doing well?
I do think the horse has bolted in terms of ever being considered of the likes of Chelsea, Man United and everything else. The only thing that I think could potentially happen is if FFP actually did its job and punished people like Chelsea for proper exploitation, which I can't see is going to happen. However, that being said, I think we had our chance with a couple of fifth place finishes and Brendan screwed it. I think if we'd have been a ruthless club, for example, I don't want us to become like Chelsea at all, but if we were more ruthless with managers and getting our goals and setting targets and doing anything to achieve them, I think we probably arguably could have sacked Brendan after the first fifth place finish. We'd have been absolutely slaughtered for it, but it would have shown our intent. So I'm not sure how often these chances come along, but it's definitely there for the taking, because outside Liverpool and Man City, I genuinely don't know who will be up there this year again, because so many teams falter. You'll have a Villa come out of nowhere and have the greatest season like they did last year. West Ham are doing really well, but equally, if they were in the relegation fight next year, it wouldn't surprise me either. I think the Premier League is becoming such a mixed bag of dross that if we can keep organised and keep our identity of being an ethical club and wanting to push on and do it the right way, then I'm hoping it will pay dividends. And I would love someone like Enzo to be with us forever. I'd love a 20-year manager. I'm just not sure they exist so much anymore, but I would love it. But yeah, we'll just have to see. But until the exploitation and the financial fair play is sorted, with Saudi stuff coming in as well now, the Premier League will be awash with Saudi money.
Yeah.
I can't see. There's too many variables going on, too much noise outside of the football now in the
Do you
Prem.
think, Kate, we need to go up? Do you think we need to go up this year? Do you think that's vital or essential?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think maybe this year or next.
Yeah, I think there becomes a point, doesn't there, with the Championship? If you look at certain clubs, like I mean, I've said this 1,000,001 times. 3/4 of this division the Championship is made up of former Premier League teams. I think there's only literally 3 or 4 that haven't ever graced the Premier League, like Rotherham, Millwall, and Plymouth. Obviously, outside of that, there probably might be 1 or 2 more names that you could throw at me that haven't. But the majority of them have been in Premier League, and you look at the wilderness they've been in. Some of them have even dropped down to League One and Leagues 1 and 2 before they even come back here. Ipswich and Leeds, not Leeds, Ipswich and Sunderland did the same. It's one that where you think we can't be spending too long in here. I don't think we're going to either. You just look at the natural squad. I mean, Dave, you said it there. The Deadwood got cleared out. I know we're in a Championship, and I know we're only 8 games if you include the 2 cup games. I know we're in a Championship, but if this team was to go on and be successful, and let's say we were going to get 90+ points, and we did go on and win promotion fairly comfortably in that case, looking ahead, I get the feeling that the Premiership's got that 90s feeling to it. That like Kay said, barring the top 2, maybe 3 clubs, there's really anyone could finish in any position if they have such a calamitous season like Chelsea have been having. And look at Villa and Wolves. They've gone from being up there in Europe to barely surviving last year. But I want to get your early feelings on it. And I know it's probably easy to do when we're on a high, but how would this club handle promotion next season? If these flock of players were given the responsibility, and obviously, okay, loanies would have to be permanently signed to kind of keep this squad together. I get that. But if this squad initially went up, looking at what you're seeing that's playing in the Premier League right now, and I'm not just talking your Burnleys, your Sheffields, your Luton Towns, etc. I'm talking your Wolves, your Evertons, your West Hams. Would Leicester really struggle to be a team that doesn't follow the norm, where more times than not the team that goes up comes straight back down? Do you reckon Leicester would be able to ride that wave?
I think we'd stay up, but I think we'd need half a dozen players in to compete and to get into that top 10 and then the top 4 and do, as Kate said, I mean, we missed a big opportunity. We blew the top 4 twice, didn't we? And that first season that we did it, we could have said, sorry, mate, but thanks for what you've done. But, we should have finished second that year comfortably. And we blew it. Yeah. And it was bad tactics. It really was. Yeah. And the second year, they didn't learn from that either, because the attitude is, well, we're Leicester, we should be grateful to be in the top 10, which is, to be fair, the attitude we had back in the 70s, 80s, and, well, right through to Martin O'Neill's day.
But no one said that about Man City when they first did it, which isn't that long ago.
Very true.
We're talking 15 years, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Man United were down, Tottenham were down, and City were down. They've all been there. And Chelsea were down. I remember that some terrible dark, wet night at Stamford Bridge when we were both in the old Division 2, and it took them 5-10 years maybe to become what they were. They're not now, but what they were, Chelsea, and a lot of money. But now they've gone totally the opposite way, and I think they've finished as a big club. They really do. I mean, they can't. I was walking in front of some guys yesterday. Was it only yesterday? And I heard they were talking about Chelsea fans. I said, well, if this works, then he'll be proved right. 9-year contracts be a brilliant thing for the future. And I thought, you don't really get it, do you? You've chucked a shed load of money to get round the fair play rules. It's nothing to do with the future, because you sell up. Well, you get rid of all your youngsters that come win the academy and the junior trophies. So I think they had it sold out to
And I don't care. I mean, look at Hudson-Odoi. Hudson-Odoi's just decided to leave. I think we were sniffing 2 years ago around him, and he's finally realised, you know what? I can't just sit here and waste my career. And quite a few. Loftus-Cheek was the same. It's really sad to see, but a lot of these players are just seduced by money and promises, I no doubt. But it doesn't make you a successful outfit at all.
I didn't see the highlights again at Bournemouth, but I'm guessing it wasn't very good.
No, it wasn't. I mean, you talk about it there. You both mentioned it about Brendan and sometimes managers maybe not jumping ship, but maybe after the success, sometimes you maybe need to jump and say, "I've taken you as far as I can." That was never really one of the things that happened with Martin. It was purely because Celtic came and he did an interview and he said, well, had Celtic never come in for me, I would have been happy to have kept on at Leicester. But where does this potentially then end for Maresca, Kate? I know us as Leicester fans would love to see us Maresca get us promoted, get us top 10, and get us Europe. But where do you think he's got that before? What credits being successful enough for you to sort of go, right, I've then taken you as far as you can see? Is it finishing in European spots a couple of seasons on the bounce, and then he kind of moves on for his own good or Leicester's own good? Or do you reckon there's a wall that he could break that maybe even we haven't seen happen at Leicester?
I think that he has no such goals in his sights as such. I don't think he's even thinking about that. He seems a very just deal with what's in front of you kind of person. The next match, this season, promotion, he'll only be looking at what's immediately in his vision. And after that, it just depends. Like with Brendan, I don't think if we'd have finished top 10 every year for the next 5 years, I genuinely believe that Brendan wouldn't have been sacked and he wouldn't have left, because Leicester offer such a happy place to work for me. You've got lovely owners, you've got an amazing training ground. I think Enzo's been living there since he got the job, so he's been away from his family. It's all, as with any job, it's all around happiness. It's not just about what you achieve. But if you do well, then, an arguably different club could come in and you've got a decision to make. But I think he'll just be so chuffed at having this opportunity. And he'll have heard and spoken to Pep as well, but heard the rumours about our owners, probably spoken to Pep. He'd have spoken to Riyadh, no doubt, before we moved, about what the owners are like and the culture of the club. And he seems a considered chap. He's pretty smart. So I don't think he's got any sights on even thinking about Premier League yet. He just wants to get through this, because there's not many Premier League managers today in the 20 clubs today that could get promoted from the Championship. So it's a flipping tough task, and that's the only one that he'll be thinking about at the minute, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose trying to think ahead of ourselves that he would. I've got to mute you, Kate. I'm sorry, but I don't know why it does this every time you finish talking. I've got you ready to unmute. It's just being weird.
Very dangerous game muting a woman.
I know, but it's just, I don't know why it's doing it. I can see it. Yeah, she's ready to say
something. Bigger man than me, Brad.
Yeah, well, someone's got to be. It won't let me now mute you. Kate, can you? Oh, you've muted yourself. That's why. I wonder what I was like. Why is he saying I couldn't do it?
I'll just mute myself, so don't worry.
Yeah, cheers, Kate. It's because I was going to type it on your private message, but I'm on my phone and my phone would slip up, and everybody see me ceiling, and it's not. It's probably more a pleasant sight than my face, but yeah, cheers.
Just reading Nate's comment at the bottom there. I think outside of the top clubs, maybe Leicester would be a very attractive destination for other players, and Maresca would make the proper signings to keep us up. I think that's how we want to be viewed.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I think you look at some of the signings he's brought in. Obviously, he used his connections at Man City to bring in Doyle, and we all know that Cassaday was actually considering going to the airport, but not to come to Leicester, to go to Italy. He was going to go to Genoa, and then Chelsea were always more in favour of him going to an English club anyway. And then Maresca convinced the player himself, and he went, you know what, I'm on board with what you're selling me, because that's something that sometimes we forget managers need to do. It's all well and good saying, I'm a good manager and look at the club, but you're the man they're working for. And Dave, we talk about certain Deadwood. Obviously, we're not going to say that about your hero, Marty. He was never Deadwood at the club. We long live Marty, long live the king. But Dave, do you feel that that's another pivotal thing that he's looking around like, who's this hero about Marty? No. We look at the surprises this season of certain players that we've been able to keep. Iheanacho, Vardy have stayed around, Dewsbury Hall stayed around. We've managed to ship a few players, some surprising than others, like Christensen going out alone was a bit of a surprise for most of us. But would you say that that's also, you look at how he's brought players in and convinced them to join it. Has he then also made it a bit easier for certain players to move on and restart their careers? Because we had so much under talent, if you will, or Deadwood, that we never really seemed to be able to shift, and they kept having to stay at Leicester because no one else wanted them. Do you see that as another vital critique in Enzo?
It's interesting. Yeah, I think he's probably looked at players and thought, can they play how I want them to? Vestergaard probably gets in more because he can play the ball out from the back than his defending ability. Although, to be fair, he's not done bad. And you look at Harry Souttar, and you think, well, I can't imagine Harry Souttar being able to play the ball out from the back. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've never really seen him as that sort of player. And you look at one or two others, and you think Samare. Well, I don't think Samare really played a ball. So not his style of player. Christensen, I was a bit surprised at, because I thought he played all right when I saw him play. But again, maybe not that type of player that he's looking for, where JJ, obviously, whichever side he plays is. And I know there's the argument also about the three at the back, isn't there, and not having wing backs or stuff like that, or having wing backs. But I think it's the quality of the player and the way he wants to play. And I think he'll continue to build on that at Christmas in the Jan transfer window, that he'll look for more players like that and shift a few more.
Yeah, I mean, Kate, we talked about Enzo's ability to offer opportunities to players. That he's willing to not accommodate for an individual, but he's willing to give you the chance of you showing the effort, and you can learn to maybe adapt to a system. We've seen that already with JJ. We're seeing that with the youngster influx in the squad. There's some obvious names that stand out that are still at the club. One that he did mention at the end of his press conference his post match, should I say, after Southampton. Is there an option that maybe Leicester fans will have to know and be a bit more patient with Enzo in seeing some players that he might play purely to get them in the shop window? I know it sounds ridiculous to be doing it in September, October, but obviously we'll talk about the elephant in the room. Daka. We've got Cannon, who's unfortunately injured, so maybe he might have to stay around. I still haven't heard any updates on Cannon's injury, but you've got Iheanacho, Vardy seem to be the front line two strikers that he's going to use and rotate, and obviously at some point, hopefully, integrate Cannon in there. Do you think Enzo will use that opportunity and fair play to everybody sort of attitude to maybe give these players a chance to just showcase themselves, instead of doing a Brendan and allowing 8 people to have the contracts rot away because they're not, he's not able to fit them into his squad?
No, I don't. I don't think he would. I think he'd only want to play you if you were going to fit into the game and the fixture that day, and you can add something to it. I don't think he's bothered about players in the shop window or putting a player out in the shop window for the view of selling them or moving them on. I don't think that's what he's about. And that's just the drawback of football and contracts, isn't it? And the Bosman ruling and the transfer windows, it's horrible, because Daka's a decent player, and if he has got this one appearance that he can't make because of the fee we have to pay, then that's not his fault. It's really restrictive for him. But I think Enzo just wants to try loads of different formations. I think he's utilising Ricky P in a bit of a different way, isn't he? He's brought him inside a bit. I think he's still sort of experimenting a bit with some of those freer roles. And he's got his core. He knows what his core looks like. I think the keeper looks decent as well. I think it's just with those many wingers that we've signed, he wants to find out which ones work best, because you're going to play quite a different, varied amount of teams in the Championship. From people like Leeds, who have an amazing front line, Leeds will be tough, to people that, that like your Hulls, who just park the bus, and it's going to be very different. It's going to be, each game's going to be really different. Norwich is going to be tough on Wednesday because they've started really well, and they are almost a shoo-in for top 6 every year. So they're experienced in this division now as well. So I think he's very much his own man, and he's just giving everybody a go at the moment and seeing what things work.
We've got a problem, haven't we, when the African Nations Cup starts? Whenever that is. When's that? November? No.
Yeah, it's January. December, January sort of time, isn't it? It's usually
he's got to clear out. And
I mean, that's probably what he'll look to in the January window. He might look to bring in some players, and that might be why certain players. I mean, we have got Braybrook and Alvarez that are coming back, and that's midfield strength, and that's why Tom Cannon maybe was brought in as a go. And actually, we're going to need it because he actually won't be here. But Kate, you kind of mentioned it nicely. I'm going to use that as a segue into a segment that I clearly planned and didn't have. I definitely did not have written down here. We maybe saw it against Southampton a little bit. People moan typically because we lost the game that Hull, we were a bit one-dimensional, and we had, and we've talked about how in Southampton we saw a little bit extra, on offer from Leicester in terms of being a bit more direct, being a bit more fluid, a bit more aggressive, and Enzo wasn't shying away from the fact we've seen it. And you mentioned it there that we may be going to see different players line up different games against different opposition, because he's sort of playing the best squad he sees fit for the opposition. I mean, Brendan would have baffled us if Brendan was to play 2 games in a row and then drop 7 players with raised eyebrows, scratch your heads. Are you almost anticipating then, with Norwich being a different side in how they play football to Southampton, are you almost expecting 4 or 5 potential changes, or would you be surprised if he changed too much from the Southampton lineup?
I don't think he'll change a hell of a lot. I think there's going to be probably 7 or 8 regulars. So I don't think Vardy will play 90 on Wednesday. I just don't think he'll do that. The front section, the front line and the wingers, I think, are all interchangeable. So it just depends how he wants to line up and how he sees Norwich's threat, really, and what bits we need to contain, as well as being able to play our own game. So I think he is just taking it each game as it comes, which is refreshing, because, like I say, we don't quite know. You can probably guess 8, but I think out of the 11, there's going to be 2 or 3 that you're just not sure of, which is how it should be, really. You can't play the same team every week. A, they'll get knackered, and B, the opposition isn't the same.
Also, there's players that Norwich won't have seen. I mean, that's quite a big factor. They might have looked at them on video or whatever they look on there, but, they are trying to get a picture of how the teams play, and we're playing differently every week. So it's very hard to actually find a way of playing against Leicester, and I think that's the thing I've noticed more, that we're unpredictable. We can. Yeah,
and I think that's probably become a feature in what's so different, isn't it? Is we are unpredictable, like you say, Dave, and this, but not just because it's 46 games in a season, not just because it's a longer season in general. but like it's so diverse as some of these oppositions. You're going to have teams that sit back and soak up the ball and are willing to let Leicester pass it around them and try and take kind of come at us attitude. But you have to be diverse, and maybe it's something, Dave. Do you feel that going forward needs to be the contingency with Leicester? We need to see more of this, because this was my big problem and issue I had under Brendan, and even though it was a lot shorter time, it happened with Ranieri. Was whilst this counter attack, we play from the back, it's great song and it's great memories and great history to it, and I will forever remember that era. But that's exactly what it was. It was an era of football that you knew was a ticking time bomb. Eventually it was going to get found out and it wasn't going to be as successful as it was. And unfortunately we saw that with Ranieri. His second year in tenure, he tried to do the same that we'd been doing for 3 or 4 years, and eventually teams figured it out and stopped us. Is that something that also maybe, if Enzo was to be, say, a 7 or 8 year manager, that's how he's going to have to be throughout his career at Leicester to have a long stay here at Leicester? Should he wish to, of course, obviously.
Yeah,
saying that.
I think he will. I think you look at all the successful managers. I mean, Ferguson obviously is a classic, that he didn't sit tight on players. If he thought they were on the way out, he'd get rid of them. No problem at all. You look at the clown at Man United now. I mean, he can't even deal with his players. You get a young lad throws a wobbly, and it all goes, and he'll never play for Man United again. What's all that about? Ferguson must be tearing his hair out. I mean, that's not the way to treat players. Klopp knows what to do, although he tends to lose it now and again. I can't see Enzo actually losing it. But then, he's not had any reason to at the moment. But I don't think, he's a soft touch by anyway. And I think the players will know exactly where they stand. And same with Daka. Daka will play. Of course he will. Vardy might get injured or something might happen. But Daka will play a fair share of games if he applies himself. And if he doesn't, he'll be out at Christmas, New Year. And I think that's the way he'll run it. And that's the only way to run a football club. And then when he does, and when he's successful for 2 or 3 years, then sky's the limit, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Kate, Scott says it here.
Can we get Dave on the coaching staff?
I think we should, I mean, I'll send this clip over to Maresca, Kate, and see what he says.
I can't walk at the minute, let alone coach.
It's all right. You just do it through video, mate. You just say you want to work from home. I'm sure Maresca will cater to your needs. Don't worry about it. As long as Eagle Piggle gets a pay cut, a pay percentage, that's all we'll ask for. Justice for Eagle Piggle. But Kate, Scott says here.
Fred Foxman.
Kate Scott says here, the fact that Maresca is getting a tune out of players and yet they are not up to the standard, then they get given extra time to fight back. It's a team, doesn't it? And I see what Scott's kind of saying. I mean, we maybe as fans, rightly, it's what we do. We raise an eyebrow. We looked at certain players like Christensen, like Sutar not getting into the team. And then we looked at players like Vestergaard going, mate, what's this guy doing? We thought he was going to be a genius. He's clearly an idiot, and he's proven us all wrong by proving why these players aren't getting chances. But does it give you a good feeling that even though it might not happen for some of these players, do you think that at least as fans we're getting the feeling that nobody's getting the door completely shut on them now at Leicester, whereas maybe under Brendan, a lot of players got that feeling?
Yeah, I think, like I've already said, I think it's about respect. It's about having two-way conversations with these players. Managing their expectations is absolutely key. And if he said to Daka, look, unless somebody gets injured, you're not going to play because there's no justification how you are at the moment to bring you in, then that gives an incentive. That gives an incentive for Daka to do something or not. He may already have a pre-agreed contract somewhere in January because he just didn't get it done in time in August. I don't know how these things work. So we'll just have to see how it goes, really. But on going back to that Athletic article that I read, I've just got it up in front of me here. One of the interesting stats from Enzo was that they do something now that's called passes per defensive action, and that means how many passes the opposition are allowed in the pressing team's own defensive third before they lose possession. and ours is one of the lowest in the league, which is at 10.5. I think 10.5 passes until we get the ball back, basically. And it just shows you that means basically that we're a team that really likes to press, which we just never saw last year. We never ever saw that last year, even against our peers, against the Evertons, the Southamptons. We just never saw that. And I think that's what Enzo's brought to us. He's brought motivation, tenacity. You bloody work hard or you're out. Do you not want the ball? We've got to get the ball back. That's the whole aim of the game. And press, intimidate, that's the Manchester City way, really. So that's, he's been able to do that. And but you have to keep up your end of the deal. So if these players that try their hardest, perform well, then get dropped, like Martial must be feeling a bit crappy at the minute. With he had a really good performance, didn't he? He's not really played that much since. So it's just managing expectations and managing the squad and getting everybody on board with that and respecting each other, I think.
Yeah, it certainly has that together feeling. I don't even feel like unless it's through their own doing, which I haven't seen any signs of it. Maybe Sutar is the only one I look at and think maybe you're your own doing. It doesn't feel like anyone's been left out of the cold or told that because of circumstances with your contract, I'm not going to play. I know, to talk about Daka. I feel like if Enzo thought he could get the best out of Daka, who we have to remember has got a few years left of his contract, he's got far longer on his contract with us than Iheanacho has. So he'd be more inclined to kind of go, well, I'll risk 5 million more to try and generate Daka into that player and not waste my time. You could say with Iheanacho, and that kind of backs it. These players happens. My biggest conclusion here, and Scott talks about how maybe he could be a winger, as he can't pull that off. I don't think he can pull that off. But there is one concern I have right now, and I'm hoping in the next week or so, maybe it's something that, like you said, Kate, we need to reach a certain amount of game mark, and these players see where we are. But my only concern then does become, you look at Iheanacho, you look at Wilfred Ndidi. Yes, Wilfred Ndidi looks like he's been born again under Enzo. Yes, Iheanacho looks like he's going to be the predominant striker. I know Jamie started against, started against Southampton, but since the turn of the season, really, Iheanacho has shown us his main starter. But the big problem we have, and it's the reason they got linked with a move away at the end of the window, was their contract. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to lose a great deal in terms of what we'd financially gain for Ndidi and Iheanacho. That's not with the greatest respect if you look at other players, but we can't keep having a Tielemans situation. It's okay to do it to once every so often, and we could argue that Tielemans gave us the run around, always saying, I've not made a decision, when clearly he fucking well had. I pardon my own French there, but is there a potential where if Daka keeps working hard, maybe doesn't get the call up, so he doesn't go away through the AFCON competition, he keeps applying himself, keeps trying to develop himself into that striker role that Enzo wants, that if Iheanacho drags this out and kind of still gets to January and he's still not signed a new deal, do we maybe see a side of Enzo where he goes, well, you know what, mate? No, I'm sick of trying to put you ahead of Daka. I'm sick of trying to get you to sign a new contract. If I'm going to lose you, I don't want to lose you for nothing. So deal or no deal sort of situation. Or is it a case of, I'd rather, are you on that point where it's like, I'd rather sell Daka in the summer or potentially in January and go out and get another striker in, because obviously we'd have Tom Cannon and Vardy still, and just admit that we're going to lose Iheanacho? Or do you see that's potentially as a chance for then Daka to work hard and get his opportunity in the squad? I've been asking Kate a lot, so I'll give Dave a chance to speak first.
Favouritism, that's not a problem.
No, I'm not going to hide it. It's favouritism. But yeah, Dave, let you speak. The people ask for your name to be spoken.
I have no idea.
Oh, wow. That's the longest answer Dave's given all season. You ask him one question, you build him up. I mean,
if you want my opinion.
No, I don't. I want your answer.
Yeah,
I don't want your.
I reckon the plan is to sell both of them at Christmas and invest the money in a new striker, European striker, and to build a brand new line, because he's not going to play more than one up front, is he? He might play two at some stages. So Daka and Iheanacho are not really going to be the main men. I can't see it. I don't have the same faith in him as you do. I think he's too hot and cold. And Daka certainly has been disappointing. I think he's got somebody lined up who maybe wanted in the summer but couldn't get for whatever reason. I mean, you don't forget, what, 4 or 5 players more that he wanted? Something like that. And he just ran out of time or ran out of options, and Daka stayed around as 1 or 2 others did. I think he's got it all sorted out for January. And I think that includes those 2 going.
I mean, Kate,
that's just an opinion.
I mean, Dave gave his opinion. He's turned around and said, that he doesn't just see Dak going in the January window. He'd see Iheanacho going. I mean,
both.
That obviously becomes a cause for concern the longer we go, not knowing whether Iheanacho is going to commit his future to the club. I mean, would you be in the same boat if it comes to January and he's still not signed a deal? Would you be thinking, well, sorry, as much as I love you, ship's got to go. Would you rather see us try and get some money for the pair of them and replace them?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with Dave on that. I think it's great if he's got something sorted in January, and I personally hope that he has, because we've had many managers come in with Nacho and he's not cut it. Like, I know he'll break your heart. I'll break your heart by saying that, but he is not the standard that we want him to be. He has got potential, don't get me wrong, but the chance that he missed against Southampton on Friday, that just absolutely sums him up. He absolutely blazed an open goal. And you just can't do it. You can't do it. He may score some belters, and the ones sometimes you don't expect him to score, he does. Or the hard work that leads up to a goal, you think, flipping heck, I didn't expect him to do that. And then he fluffs the chance and the shot. He's just no way near dependable enough, like what Vardy's been in the past. And you want someone, like Paul Mullen for Wrexham. He just doesn't miss. You need somebody like that who's just ready to go. And I just don't think. That's why a lot of the managers haven't played him regularly, because he's not earned it. And if we can get a bit of money in January, it's better than nothing.
He's experienced now, isn't he? I mean, he's what, 27 next month?
Yeah.
Or
He's not this forgotten kid anymore, is he?
No, I mean, it's not as if he's learning. I mean, he should be
a Premier League striker, but he doesn't appear like that. Don't get me wrong.
Southampton, yeah, you're right. Southampton last year, Kate, was horrendous at their place. I mean, he just missed a couple of 3 chances, and his shoulders went, his head went. That's why we had enough for them.
But I mean, could you make the argument then that we if we cast our minds back to a time where Brendan got it actually right and played to up front, where he was the top goal scorer, he outshone Vardy in all competitions. I know Vardy had more goals in the league, and I know that's where it really, really counts if you want to be critical. But Nacho took us to the FA Cup final essentially with his goals. He helped us get past Brighton, Southampton, and in the quarters and the semi-finals and earlier rounds. So he's shown his uses and potential when he's given that run. And could you not argue? Okay, I will put this scenario to you then. Iheanacho breaks through, doesn't pass to Vardy, and he chips the ball over the goalkeeper and he puts it wide like Mavididi does, right? But he has 20 minutes left in the game, and then he gets that chance again, and like Mavididi, he takes it. Do we then maybe see that it's just a confidence player, because he just seems to play it? And I might be on my own here. And before I ask you to answer this question, Dave, because I'm going to make sure I've not got favouritisms. Kate, you're the favourite, but I'm going to make sure you don't feel left out here. Am I the only one that thinks that this man does still have a future at the club?
Yeah,
Oh, I am. I'm very anticlimactic answer. You're waiting for that first. Yeah, I am. But I don't. I mean, we have seen it though, haven't we? Do we not think that maybe if he gets a couple of goals under his belt and he rewards the stars, we could see that in the actual return? I mean, it's a championship. It's the ideal.
Can't do it under pressure. He cannot. I mean, the goals. Yeah, he scored a lot of goals, but a lot of them were in the cup games. Yeah, the FA Cup certainly. I mean, was it the Brighton one? Last second header, or was it a header? Something like that, wasn't it? That got us through. But when it comes to the big moments, he can't do it. And maybe even Brendan saw that because, okay, he played him with Daka at Brighton, which turned into a nightmare. But, first 5 minutes or so was brilliant. But that was it. After that, they didn't even know where each other was at the Amex. And you think, that's not good enough. We should be aiming higher than that. I mean, he's great and he's all this, but he professes his love for the club. But yeah, where's the contract? If he was offered one, I don't.
Well, I mean, contracts these days, they're not that easy to negotiate. But Enzo did say once the windows have closed, and he used the word windows plurally, that's an option that him and Wilfred and Ndidi have been offered. Because again, you talk about turning contrasts, one player scoring goals, looking a delight, and it's not the one we'd thought because he's the midfielder scoring it. I mean, what would that be? Would we be so critical to kind of be saying, well, yeah, okay, but if indeed he hasn't signed a new contract, we're going to ship him out as well in January? Because it's all well and good saying we get rid of maybe one or two, but we start shipping out somebody who's turned a face, whether they've decided to sign a contract or not. We've got to be careful. I mean, Nate says it here, and I think this ultimately sums up what we've said all night about Enzo as a person and as a manager. He says, I'd be sad to see Iheanacho leave, but I believe Enzo will make the right decision, whatever it is. But Brooke Klein, who hasn't been around in a while, I have been popping comments up because we're kind of just debating as we're going along. Good to see you, mate. He says, Nacho is a joy to watch. More minutes equal more goals. So he's still dividing opinion. One man that's Scott, I'm just going to answer your question quickly. We know he's injured, Tom Cannon, but I don't know if you guys want to jump on and say anything else to it. I've not heard anything else about it apart from the fact that he's injured. I don't even think they know yet, do they?
No,
do you? No. So unfortunately, Scott, he's still injured, and that's all we know. One person who now once bitten, twice burned, maybe. I made a very harsh couple of accusations towards a certain love child of Chris's Vestergaard when he didn't move and when he was supposed to be moving, and then he turned down the move himself after saying he wanted first team football. I was scolded because Vestergaard has proven me wrong. But Scott says here, we've talked about Striker and Daka, we've talked about a few other players, but one that we've only briefly touched on here. Do either of you, and I'll start with you, Kate, because, okay, Dave, plug your ears a minute. Plug your ears, you don't have to hear it. Kate, you're the favourite. That's why. I'm asking you this first, Kate. Sorry, it's all right, Dave. I didn't say anything about favourites, so you're all good. But you've I wouldn't say turned your nose up, but you've already kind of passed judgment on Daka's time at Leicester. I wouldn't care, really. If Enzo somehow turns around and says to me, actually, he's the best defender I've ever seen, he's finally proven his worth, he's going to start playing every week, I'm happy for it. But no smoke without fire. I think he's got a lazy attitude. I don't think it's a coincidence that Brendan stopped playing him. Smith never really played him apart from the one game because he was too tired to play. And why he's not in Enzo. For me, he's done and good riddance to his time at Leicester. But Kate, am I being too harsh? Do you see a potential way back into the team for Souttar?
I quite liked him when he did play, to be honest, because we were just so desperate for somebody that could actually bring a bit of calmness to the back four if Brendan wasn't going to pick Soyuncu. But I think Enzo's a man of his word, and there's obviously been some words exchanged for him to have absolutely no place in the squad. And I think the same goes for Daka. I don't think there perhaps will have been a falling out or anything, but Enzo has been in the game probably long enough to know what he wants to play, the style he wants to play, and to know quite quickly a player that won't fit it. I think he had the conversation with Christensen as well to say that I think Christensen really wanted to play. I don't think he had any issues with him as a player or a person, but he just said to him, you're not going to fit my system, so do what you want with that information. So and then he
Yeah.
said, I need to go then. And I think it's a real open dialogue. That's the impression that I get. But Harry, I don't know what's gone on. He might be sulking. He might just not be the finished product that we wanted. His injury from before means that he may not be able to do certain movements or have a certain pace or make certain tackles. I don't know. There's going to be a lot that's gone into it. We paid a lot of money for him, really. So I'd like to see him shipped out to get something back for him, to be honest. And he probably wouldn't be cheap either.
Maybe check the receipt if they don't want him back. Because I was at first impressed with him. I thought, oh, it comes to his interview when he first signed, the dramatic reveal. I thought, oh, we've got a good player on his hands. He seems to be hardworking and committed, but he's just seemed to have died out for me. And whereas with Christensen, I feel like he's gone with the graces of being told that yes, we'll try and move you on to a club where you're guaranteed first team football, or if you do well, you're going to be guaranteed first team football. But I still feel with Christensen's loan, there's maybe still that door ajar. I will say it right eventually. I'll get there eventually. That door's still ajar that maybe. Jars and doors, I can't get them right. But you know what I mean? I feel like if maybe he goes out there and the feedback is that he's developed his game. He's really trying to develop himself, and he's showing he's a bit more versatile, that he might still have a future here when he comes back. Who knows? Time will tell. He's out on loan. He's not something that's in the main headlines right now for talking points, because even though he's still our player, he's not of our concern. There's nothing we can do with him in terms of seeing him play for Leicester. But I still feel like it's not like signed, sealed, delivered that he'll leave Leicester. But I do feel with the likes of Daka and Sutar, their time is done, and they'll get moved on. Maybe, like you said, both of you said sooner rather than later in the January window. It could be a.
Because the other thing you've not talked about, Brad, is Wout Faes. I mean, is it?
Well, I was just about to bring that up because of.
Sorry, there's rumours about him, weren't there? About I know rumours are rumours, but it was about not wanting to play in the Championship. Or
no, well, I heard that, but then I heard some very, very unfortunate words. I had some very, shall I say, politically choiced words about, and it was the Belgian manager had allegedly, and I will say this allegedly, but he'd come out and said, you need to move to a bigger division because I won't pick you playing in the Championship. And I may have said some very bad choice of language. It's not like me to swear or blow my top. I've never done such a thing. But I may have said that he was the biggest scumbag on the earth, if that's true, and you should never, no international manager should have a ruling on where you choose to play football if you're good enough to play it. Unless your name's Southgate, if you're good enough and representing your team that you're playing for well enough, then you're good enough to play international football. And I don't think any international managers should stick their nose right out of where players choose to play their football. Unless you're Southgate, of course, because you're a yes man and it's not you picking the team. It's clearly the it's the FA picking the England 25-man squad, not Southgate. But Nate puts it up there, and I know it's someone else could come in. Maresca might want in January. We don't know. And obviously now Doyle, and we've got Cody back fit. We've seen that Justin might get into that position. Kate, being says Dave wants to be a busybody. He's not getting his favourites. Like, he keeps trying to answer questions, bless him. So here we go, Kate. Is that potentially a name that we're looking at, or is it actually vital that we keep him? Have that depth in squad with how Enzo seems to want to rotate and use his players.
I think we need to keep the depth in squad at the back because we got so badly stung by it in previous seasons. But if Fast wants to leave, then as long as we buy like for like, there's nothing I don't really care about that. If he doesn't want to play for the club, and that it's indifferent to me, off you go then. But he might be one of these players that has expressed an interest to leave, who Maresca said he's talked round. And also a lot of Leicester players will have had the grass isn't always greener tutorial, because it happened with Drinkwater. It's happened with Yuri. You know, there's been a lot of players leave Leicester where you think, oh, they're going to do really well. It's going to absolutely take off for them. And Yuri's barely played a minute. I think he got half an hour at the weekend. You know, just because you move to the Prem, it doesn't mean that you're going to get game time. And similarly with top divisions in other countries. So if I was fast, I'd just sit tight. It might be different if we don't get promoted, but if he doesn't want to play for us, he can bugger off. But if he does, and it looks like he does, I don't doubt his commitment when he's on the pitch at all, then I'd like to keep him because I do quite like him.
Well, we are pretty light at the back, aren't we? All we need is an injury or two, and as you say, we're back to how we used to be. So, yeah, I don't want him to go. I just, you know, obviously there were rumours going around. I think what international managers say can be treated with a pinch of salt half the time, because it's either an agent spreading the word that wants to get him removed, anything like that. So I think the conversation would have happened, and you know, Enzo said, "Stick around with me if he wants him, and you'll be okay. Don't worry about it."
I think
you play well week in, week out, and you'll be all right. You don't play well, I'll drop you.
Yeah, of course, there is no smoke without fire sometimes, but a lot of things is churned up to try and get an agent to get his player. You know, he's a player of his a move, and I, you know, you'd like to think, wouldn't you, Leicester Southgate, that a player gets told, look, you put in the effort, you'll play week in, week out. There's no way your international manager can ignore you if you're playing really well and in my squad. So don't worry about that. That shouldn't be an issue. I know you guys have been coming into the comment section all night. I really appreciate everybody's support. But I'm going to just do a little bit of a shameless plug like this here first. I think you all know what videos come in because I have to, I need to do it. But I'm going to let a couple of questions come in, and I'm going to ask this hypothetical question for you both just to think on why I do this lovely shameless plug. If Leicester were in the Premier League right now and had stayed up under Maresca, and Maresca got the job and brought in these players, where do you think Leicester would finish with this squad? Now, don't give me your answer. Obviously, I've just said I'm going to do a lovely shameless plug, but think about it for the next 20 or 30 seconds whilst I realise I set that question up, teed it up nicely, and didn't have the videos ready. But you've got about 30 seconds to think it through.
Leicester Till I Die podcasts on the Apple iTunes, Spotify, Google, Anchor, and all podcast platforms.
Something is coming. Something big to this podcast.
Hello, Chris.
The TalkSport Fan Network is the ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts,
including Leicester Till I Die, independent analysis and reaction for the Foxes faithful.
The TalkSport Fan Network.
Unbeatable club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Follow the podcast on the TalkSport Fan Network.
The Premier League? That's so last season. It's all about the Championship here on LTID TV.
Now that's what I call football.
You hit the right spot.
Time to think about it there. I'll give you 3 bloody videos. It's laggy one end. I knew it was coming. Thanks, Kate. Thank you very much. That's why you're my favourite, Kate. But no, guys in the comments, obviously you've been firing your questions in all through the show. We can't be playing it on Hinge tonight, but the phone lines are now closed because these guys have lives and do have things to go through. So if there's any questions that are coming now, we'll race through them, but we are going to come to wrapping up the show. But we do appreciate everything you've done. But guys, hypothetical, I know it's 8 games in. I know you want to say it's only 8 games, but I can't tell you. But if you was to put Leicester, gun to your head, where are Leicester going to finish if they were in the Premiership this season? Where would you put them? Starting with, well, we'll go age before beauty. So, Dave. Is he muted himself?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, he's just doing goldfish impressions.
Well, my first thought was top 10. And then I thought what Kate said earlier and thought, actually, she's right. There's only 2 sides up there that are going to, that you can guarantee will be okay. So I reckon we could get in the top 4 with a bit of luck and.
Ooh, wow! And I mean, for a man that doesn't like to say the word optimistic, let alone be it.
No, I don't. I can only see Arsenal. I mean, I hate to think that Tottenham might actually have a good season, but I can only see Liverpool, Man City, and maybe Arsenal that are going to be the standout teams. And I see the rest of them just being pretty average. I think that, I agree. Maybe Villa might do all right, but they're not going to have a good season.
Wow, Dave's gone from the most pessimistic man you could meet that supports Leicester to saying we're going to be in Champions League, Kate. Bring it on Tuesday nights and Wednesday nights under the lights, according to Dave.
Only because I know it's hypothetical.
Well, yeah, I suppose that's the reason to get away with it. But Kate, sensible head on here. Where would you put this Leicester side in the current crop of the Premier League?
I think maybe 7th or 8th, but only on the caveat that Connor Cody is fit. If we have Vestergaard at the back against Premier League teams, we may as well play with 10 men. I can't So if we have Vestergaard at the back, we ain't top half. We're struggling. I saw it last year.
There you go. There's
we have Connor Cody in, and we play Kevin Keegan style football because we're not brilliant at the back still, but going forward we look 100 times better. Then I think 7th or 8th for me.
Well, there you go, folks. According to our panel. According to our glorious panel, now me being the gracious host, I'm going to keep mine under lock and key. I'm not going to ruin your party. I'm not going to bring the mood down because if Dave's going to be the coach next season, Kate's going to be the assistant manager. I'll obviously be the handsome chap that sits in the chair. I won't be a part of the staff. I'll just be sat in the chair until Kate kicks me out. But we're all going on a European tour in a few years' time, so get your bags packed. Get looking at flights to Spain and wherever around the world, because going to these two, this side's taking us on a European journey. Get us to the Carabao Cup final. We're already there, according to Kate and Dave. But as Scott says there, please can everybody make sure you are smashing your likes button. Loads of you have been tuning in. I hope you're smashing the like button. You have enjoyed it, and do all the usual jazz, subscribing if you are new to the channel, and share the video. I mean, they've got a few comments here. Brookline, Scott says we would probably currently be 15th, 16th in the Prem at this stage. I mean, you take it, wouldn't you? It's still keeping our head above water. Brookline says in the Prem, above the likes of Luton, Burnley, and Everton. So again, keeping us safe. That's 3 more teams than we're going against. Scott then says, but think Maresca and his squad would be safe at the end of the season. And that's all that really matters sometimes this season. I think Scott says here, come on, Brad, don't be a Spurs, stop bottling it and give us your thoughts. I would think I'm going to play it a little bit safe here. I'm going to say we'd kind of replicate what we did under O'Neill. We'd probably have a few good cup runs. We might get to a final. I think we'd be top 10. I think we'd definitely be top 10, knocking on that Conference League door maybe if we had a good enough running.
Come on,
throughout the season.
Positive.
Oh, right. Well, I'm still stay at home, right? I'm still keep your butts firmly planted. Don't go saving your money for a holiday away. But these two crazy cats are going for a European tour again.
We're going on it.
Yeah, well, in Enzo we trust, as we have said all night. Guys, I'm going to give you a chance to
something before.
No, you can't. Shut up, Dave. No, shut up. Go. No, go on, Dave. Go on, speak and be heard, Dave. Power to the people.
Can I just encourage everybody to support Prostate Cancer UK?
Yes.
Even if it's just by buying the little man. I think that costs £2 or £3 or something.
Don't call Chris Little. You can't buy him.
Okay, and wear it with pride because they're doing a brilliant job. They don't get any support from anybody, the UK government or anything. Of course, Jeff Stelling is still very much involved. But I walked with many people yesterday, but one of the guys I walked with who was struggling a bit was the reporter from Ostrich Gate. He was a freelancer. He's only a young lad. And he works for the Mirror, and he told me a few things which I can't possibly repeat. But yeah, it was him. And he said that he loves Leicester, but that was his saddest claim to fame. He was the ostrich gate. Yeah. Anyway, nice to see you.
Yeah, guys, definitely, it's great. All banter and jokes aside, Dave, it's great to have had you on the show tonight. It's great to see you back. And yes, please, if you, even like Dave says, even you get the little man that you can put on a little pin vest, is any support for it is huge.
Spread the word.
Yeah, definitely spread the word, and make sure you do get yourself checked out. It's rather be safe than sorry, as they say. And Dave, just give people a quick shout out to like your socials and where they could probably find that link to go and donate for it.
Well, actually, he's got the week off, but it's a Just Giving page, and I think if you, I don't know, I have no idea anymore, to be honest. I'm numb from the head down, but it's just Giving slash the what's it called, the football march, Dave Smith, Jeff Stelling type thing. So something like that will find it. So if you can do, but please, more importantly, do spread the word around about it.
Make sure you're all.
Thank you for those who have supported it already. We've doubled our target, which is brilliant. So thank you.
Yeah, amazing. Well done to everybody who has contributed towards that. And Dave, it's been a pleasure having you back on, mate.
Yeah, nice to see you guys.
Yeah, it's been lovely to see you. Thanks for coming. Yeah, we've missed you, Dave. We have honestly missed you. It's great to see you.
Saying that, yeah.
Oh, all right. Don't make me kick you out. And there's some sound Kate, you've obviously been doing the Garinder honours. You haven't gone the Rotherham game. You missed the Southampton game, but you're here. You know, you're the eye candy for the crowd that are watching in below. There's a reason the viewers keep hiking up. So do tell them if you wish to have that information. Tell everybody where they can find you.
I'm on Twitter. I'm the tweeting bird on Twitter at Kate Blakey 40. That's where you'll find me.
Oh, she's keeping her very discreet now. I've said she's eye candy. She doesn't want everybody to know where she can be found. Just on Twitter, so she can block you if you sound a bit creepy.
That's the only place I am.
That is true. That's the only place she will stay. She says, guys, thank you very much for joining me tonight, as always. And you guys in the comments have been fantastic, as always. Well, hopefully feeling better tomorrow. Chris will return for the quiz on Tuesday night with Neil from Beyond the 90. Kate, are you going to the game on Wednesday, which is when I may be doing my commentary version of the watch along again, or is it another big midweek bender for you?
I'm not going. It's too far. It's the best part of 3 hours.
One job. She had one job, Dave.
On a school night, but I'll be there on Saturday for Big Nigel's return.
Oh, I see how she makes an appearance for that one. Well, Kate, either way, it's been lovely having you back on the show, and hopefully you get over your Garinderitis by the weekend, and we'll have you on the pre-match, the halftime, and the usual jazz as we have done before. Kate, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and Dave, it's been a pleasure having you back with us as well. And to those who in the comments. Yeah, you're always welcome, mate. All of you are. And to those in the comments, thanks for joining us. I hope you liked it. Hit the like and subscribe button on your way out. And until next time, as always, come on, you foxes.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You better like them too, or I'll be back.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network.
TalkSport. Powered by fans.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.